So let me ask you this. When was the last time you took a moment just for yourself? Not for work, not for school, not for family, but for you. That's where journaling comes in. And that's exactly why I created my journaling kits. Each kit is designed to make it super easy and honestly, really fun to start your journaling journey. You'll get a decorated journal with over 100 prompts to spark your creativity, plus washi tape, stickers, cards, and even a sweet treat to keep you inspired. Journaling is more than just writing. It's self-care, it's reflection, it's dreaming bigger. And with these kits, you don't have to stare at a blank page wondering where to start. I've got you covered with prompts that will help you reflect, plan, and grow. They're just $18, and you can grab yours today on Etsy in the Black Girl Iowa shop. Don't wait to start your journaling journey. Your thoughts, your dreams, your story, they deserve a page. Welcome back to the Black Girl Iowa podcast, where we elevate the voices, stories, and experiences of Black women in Iowa. I'm your host, Emili, and today's episode features Tiara Mays-Sims, a devoted mother, civic leader, and powerful advocate for equity and justice in our state. Tiara is a proud mother of twins and a dedicated public servant whose journey into advocacy was born out of the desire to create a better, more just future for Iowa families. Over a decade ago, she moved to Johnston, Iowa, to build a life rooted in community, and she's been showing up ever since. She holds a psychology degree from Iowa State University and an MBA from Purdue Global University. Professionally, Tiara is a contract negotiator, a member of the Heartland AEA board, vice chair of the Iowa Democratic Black Caucus, and serves on the board of the Red Cross of Central Iowa. She is also a proud member of the Nu Mu Zeta chapter of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, continuing a legacy of scholarship, sisterhood, service, and finer womanhood. In 2024, ran for the Iowa House of Representatives in District 43, garnering an impressive 48% of the vote, a powerful sign that her message is resonating with the change is on the horizon. In this conversation, Tiara will share her journey through motherhood, civic leadership, and public service, plus her hopes for the future of Black women, working families, and inclusive representation in Iowa. So, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary friends, please welcome the one and only Tiara Mays-Sims to the show. Tiara, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. I'm excited to be here and to dive into this conversation. So I am honored. Truly.
Yes, I'm really happy to have you here. And I will say, I have now officially had one member of each female D9 sorority on the show. So I had a Delta in Renee Hardman and an AKA in Miss Ashley Stewart. So this is very exciting for me because I think one of the greatest things about a lot of the women in the Des Moines area and in central Iowa that are a part of the D9 sorority, you are all rooted and connected in some type of civic engagement. And I think that that is so important. And we're going to get into all of that because I know that there's ties to everything. But first, you are a Detroit girly. So I have to ask, why Iowa? What brought you here?
Well, so, I claim Detroit, but I grew up in Iowa. I have been here since I was 10, and our family, we moved here for my dad's job. He was supposed to be working as an adjunct professor at Drake for 9 months. And I still remember this conversation. He set me and my sister down at the table, and he was like, "How would y'all like to move to Iowa?" And we looked at him and we were like, "What is Iowa?" My dad, my parents, both of them, very intelligent, very nerdy people. So my dad always had an atlas with him, pour with directions. And so he pulled out his atlas and he showed us, he was like, "Okay, we're here in Detroit. If you just go down I-80, there's Iowa." So we were like, okay. And we've been here ever since. What was supposed to be 9 months turned into a lifetime, and a lot of it was just my parents' desire to have us have accessibility to things that we didn't have in Detroit.
Mhm.
We're tall. So, while we were in Detroit, no one ever asked us to play organized basketball.
Mm.
We were playing in the alley on milk crates with our uncles, nothing too serious. But when we moved to Iowa, my gym teacher, I walked in there my first day and he was just like, "Do you hoop? Do you play basketball?" I was like, "No, no, I don't." He's like, "Yeah, I do now." We started playing for the school, for our elementary school, and then, after that first year, I think they just, they saw the opportunities. They
Mhm.
saw the opportunities that were here to keep us safe, to keep us busy
Mhm.
for sports, and I've been grateful for that decision for,
Mhm.
my entire life. Now, I've stayed for my son,
Mm.
and we can talk about that as we move forward, but
Mhm.
yeah, that's how I got to Iowa, and it's been one of the best decisions that I'm thankful for my parents for making, but I claim Detroit because culturally, I am a Detroit girl. My parents
Yeah.
well, all my family is from Detroit, and, the level of culture that I have is much different than what my kids are getting.
Mhm.
It's hugely different.
Mhm.
And even just, not having I don't have cousins here. I don't have
Mm.
aunts here. I don't have my family is built from the ground up, right? The
Mhm.
people that
Good.
I call my cousins or, my pops, we're not blood related.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so it's just building community here, and, I think that we've done a good job in doing that, but
Mhm.
yeah, I claim Detroit because that's where my roots are.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's I always loved to hear other Black women, other Black people in their origin stories. That's what I like to call them because, Iowa, if you are from here, usually a lot of us, our connection is families from the South, right? So like
Yes.
my grandmother, her family is from Jackson, Mississippi. They came up here, same with my grandfather's family, and then everything they basically just stayed, for kind of what your parents wanted for a better opportunity,
Yeah.
with the difference being, getting out of the Jim Crow South. But I always like to ask that question because I feel like sometimes people think that Black women here that we're in a vacuum and we're going to be just like the other Iowa girls that we see all the time, and it's just like no, like our experiences are incredibly unique to everyone else's. So one of the things that you most definitely pride yourself on is being a mother. And so to kind of go a little bit and talk about some of those differences, do you see any type of differences with having spent the first tens of years of your life in Detroit, then that girlhood, adolescence, teen years in Iowa? Do you see differences for your children as when it comes to being in this space where it is predominantly white? And how do you help your children navigate this world that we live in, but still to stay true to themselves?
Yeah, first I'll say that that has been one of my biggest challenges is I live in Johnson, I live in the suburbs, and trying to make sure that my kids are well rooted in their Black culture.
Mm,
Without making them feel bad or dismissing the fact that their situation is much different than mine.
mhm,
I grew up, both of my parents highly intelligent, educated, but there were things that, we didn't have a lot of money.
mm,
One of my memories from Detroit, we used to go skating all the time.
mhm,
We would go to Skateland. And I vividly remember the first time we asked our mom to let us go to Skateland by ourselves. We wanted to be dropped off by ourselves.
mhm,
And of course, the day that we asked to go by ourselves, somebody is shooting in the back of the
mm,
and so this is before cell phones.
yeah,
And I remember me and my sister, I grabbed my sister and we go and we get underneath a table in the cafe area. And I'm just holding on to her. And I managed to get to a phone to call our mom to come and get us. My kids don't know what gunshots
yeah,
sound like, right?
especially in Johnston.
Yeah, not even Johnston. I have memories of shots being fired in front of our house. These are things I wouldn't want them to experience, but also recognizing that, um, because of where they're growing up, someone will question their Blackness,
Mm,
and that is how do I prepare them for that?
Mhm.
My Blackness gets questioned by my own family. I you know, when I got pregnant, my cousin, he asked me, "Is he white?" I was like, "What? What would make you ask why would you ask me that?" Not that it matters, but
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Yep.
2 weeks ago, we or Memorial Day weekend, we had a family reunion in Detroit, and my daughter is meeting a lot of her 3rd cousins and stuff for the first time, and one of our cousins asked her, "Is your father white?" And it's because of our dialect, right?
Mhm. Yep. Yep.
You know, was she serious? I don't know, because my daughter came
Mhm.
and she's like, "They asked me if my father's white," and I just rolled my eyes. I'm like, "You don't even look."
Yeah. Yep.
You know, look,
Right.
but in understanding that, your own family will even, question
Mhm.
what your relatedness to Black culture
Mhm.
is. Do I talk to properly? Of course, around my uncles, yeah, I talk like
Mm.
this. Around my friends, it's a whole lot of ratchet, you
Yeah.
know?
Yep. 100%. Mhm.
So, trying to make my daughter in particular more comfortable with who she is, understanding that she's Black. I
Mhm.
want her to always understand she's Black, and I remind her of that all the time. I remind her that, your hair is different than your friends.
Mm.
Your teachers will treat you differently than your peers.
Mhm.
People will look at you differently than your peers. Your body structure is gonna be different than your peers.
Mhm.
All while not trying to, you know, urbanize her. We're not monolithic. So that has been it's been an interesting journey,
Mhm.
but with that, I say the biggest thing is that she probably doesn't know how to code switch as well as I do. She is who she is,
Mhm.
and my job is to foster that,
Mhm.
let her appreciate it, and understand that when she gets older and into the world, she doesn't have to explain her Blackness to anybody. Her Blackness is just fine. Her parents work really hard
Mhm.
for her to have access to all of this, and it's okay.
Yeah, and you bring up something that is just so like I don't know if I'm getting triggered or if like all of those feelings are coming back because my father is from the Bronx. And so he came out here to go to school. He's been here ever since. Me and my sister used to go to the Bronx when we were kids to go spend the summers with our grandparents.
Yeah.
And you take 2 Black girls from Iowa and you have them go to the South for an entire summer, and a lot of what you're saying is what I experienced, and, with how I speak, with, my tone, or just even with some of the things that I like, I remember my cousins making fun of me because, like, come middle school, I'm like knee deep in the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. That's all I care about. That's all I listen to. It is what it is, right? But I think you touched on something important in that you are teaching your daughter at an early age that Black people, Black women, we are not a monolith. So anything that who you are is who you are. And, I didn't learn that I don't necessarily have to code switch as much until I was like in my mid 30s.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's like, imagine if I would have caught that lesson
Yeah.
in my teen years.
Yeah. I think, I got to that space too,
Mhm.
and I was adamant when I was running for office. I was like, "I am so tired of covering up who I am."
Mm.
My initial conversations with people, I was told, to stop talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion so much. Don't wear your nose ring. Don't wear the earrings. Pull your hair back. A lot of things. And I remember my first campaign event and blessed, everyone that was super helpful. And I know that we all believed we were doing the right thing. But my first campaign event, we had a hot chocolate bar. And it was a suggestion of women that were helping me through the
Mhm.
campaign. I am grateful for that. However, it wasn't something that I would have ever thought of.
Mhm.
And I was like, "What is a hot chocolate bar? How is this gonna work?"
Mhm.
And so we get to the event and they have, it's exactly how it sounds. It's hot chocolate and different, you're adding the different things in the hot chocolate. And it was really cute. It just was not tiara.
Mhm.
I love music. I'm a Motown girl. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm a Motown girl, and before I start anything, I have to listen to music, and
Mhm.
I have specific playlists for specific things, and at that event, I was told, "Hey, Tiara, play like, don't play so much R&B or hip hop," and, I was playing the Gap Band, okay? I wasn't playing,
Yeah.
I wasn't the Ying Yang Twins or anything like that,
Right.
and it was at that moment I was glad it was early on in my campaign because
Mhm.
at that moment, through the afterwards, I had to really sit with myself and say, "This is not Tiara, and I'm
Mhm.
not running like this. I'm not running this campaign like this."
Mhm.
The next event that I had, I wore a T-shirt that says "Nah," and then, the quote by Ro it says
Rosa Parks.
yeah. I wore it on purpose with an oversized blazer and jeans. I had my
Mhm.
hoop earrings on, I had my nose ring in. I'm like, "If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna be me. You either vote for me or you don't vote for me, but I can't be somebody else." So,
Mhm.
I think there's power in, as you get older, understanding that who you are,
Mhm.
whatever formula it is as a Black
Mhm.
woman,
Mhm.
just do it, just be it.
Right.
And we live in a state also we live in Iowa where I think it's the best environment to be yourself because, nobody expects, they don't expect what they see on TV from us. The
Yeah.
expectations are not there. We're not
Mhm.
Atlanta, you know, you're not expected to be in designer going to the grocery store. I
Mhm.
think it's a space where we can be free, and I just know so many women, Black women here that, we're just all so different, and I love that. I love it.
Yeah, and, I think and my audience knows this and people know this about me too, is that I always have an intention and an idea of where these conversations are going to go. And then we start talking, and any question that I wrote, no, doesn't matter. So let's go ahead and talk about let's go ahead and talk about this, because you bring up something that is so important, in that our identity is not rooted in the expectations of other people.
Mhm.
And when Deidre DeGier was on the show, and then also I had April Finley on the show, both of them made commentary to say something to the effect of Black women in Iowa, they live this almost like this unique independence of self. And a lot of that, in my opinion, is because the outside world doesn't really, we already know that no one here really expects anything from us. No one
Yeah,
expects greatness. No one expects us to run for public office. No one expects us to open up businesses, open restaurants, become pillars in our community. But then again, we don't necessarily ask permission to do any of those things.
we sure don't, and
Talk to me a little bit about you and your journey of kind of becoming, Tiara that we see now. Because again, like, if there were physical representations of how I got to where I am, I'd be bruised and broken probably. But again, and especially with everything that you're involved in, from the Red Cross to the Heartland AEA, the Iowa Democratic Black Caucus, your sorority, how did all of those things help you become the Tiara that you are now?
yeah, I'll start with first off, I think that there was a mind shift for myself after I had my children. I had my twins when I was 23 years old. I got pregnant at 22. And by 25, I knew that I was the mother of a child with a disability.
Mm,
And those first 5 years, 5, 6 years, I was a broken human.
mm,
I was a single mother. I didn't have much money. I now had a child with autism. I did not know how I was gonna deal with that. I was already dealing with the fact that I was a single mother that wasn't making enough money, that, just all of the things that we as Black women, we know we go through.
mm,
And I found myself one day in our apartment because on the weekends I just stayed at home. During the weekdays, they would go to daycare, their respective childcare. I would go to work, but on the weekends, I was always very nervous about taking my son out places, and so we just stayed at home. And I was growing frustrated. the moments that I would go out with my mom and my family, people my mom's well known, my sister's well known, and sometimes I felt like I'd be standing there and people would rush up to them and it
Mhm.
was as though I was invisible, like I wasn't there. And in a lot of ways, I wasn't.
Mhm.
I was not there. And so the journey really began. I remember sitting in my room one day and I was determined that I wanted people to at least know my name.
Mhm.
You know, I didn't, acknowledge me when
Mhm.
when you see that I'm standing right there. And that was a really big thing for me. And I prayed a lot on it. And I'm like, God, I don't know why it's important that people know my name, but this is what I think what my task is. We started going to church more regularly.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of things just started to shift for me. I went back to school to get my master's degree. And with every step,
Mhm.
I got more confident.
Mhm.
And in that confidence is when I started participating more in things. The first step, and Mary Wells, she knows she has my heart. She is my
Mhm.
mentor. For a year or more, she was on me about being on the board of investing in my future. And me and
Hmm.
her, we worked together at MetLife, and she knew everything that I was up against. She knew that that my son needed round the clock care. I'm like, I don't have the time, Mary. I can't
Yeah.
do it. I can't do it. But whatever it is that she saw in me, I just said yes.
Mhm.
And, so getting my first board position, then I get my MBA, my confidence is just building. And after I get my MBA, I get an opportunity to go work for Aetna.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay. And at that point in time, I'm making more money than I've ever made. I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay. And while I was at Aetna on my lunch break, I had an idea for a children's book that came to me in the drive-through at Wendy's.
Mhm.
Rushed back to the office. I grabbed some printer paper and I wrote the words that were in my head on this
Yeah.
printer paper, page at a time. I sent these pages to my little cousin.
Mhm.
At the time was in high school. Remember, when I say cousin, I don't have any real
Yeah.
family.
This is a chosen cousin.
Yes, I send it to her. I say, "Hey, can you add some illustrations to these words?" And I'm thinking this is gonna take a while, right? She sends it back to me in an hour, hour and a half tops, and our book was created.
Mm.
From there, I look up how to publish it on Amazon Katie. That took me a couple of hours. We didn't change anything. What you see in the book is what I wrote on printer paper. The
Mhm.
illustrations you see, that is what she gave to me an hour later. We didn't
Mhm.
change it. And then once that book was created, I was like, okay, this is nice. I called Barnes and Nobles and I said, "Hey, I wrote this book. I want to have people come and, get it from your store or, and I sign it." And we're like, "Okay." And so I just started doing these cool things that to me actually came very easily,
Mhm.
but I was just asking and my confidence was growing. You know, um, you could have a book signing at Barnes& and Nobles too. Call and ask them.
Yeah. Yep.
Because that's what I did. After that, that's when my journey of advocacy for my son in particular started. It's a children's book. We wrote it in the perspective of my daughter and how she plays with her brother who has autism, and that started the progression of me writing and being a contributor to Autism Parenting magazine. I wrote about our story and my decision to have him in a residential facility for children with intellectual disabilities and autism.
Mhm.
That led me to doing more advocacy across people started just messaging me from across the country.
Mhm.
And I would meet with them on Zoom and I'd start off the conversation. I'm like, I have no advice. I have a listening ear.
Yeah.
Know that you have someone in your corner in Iowa that will come to meetings with you if you want to. And, I will sit in an IEP meeting with you,
Mhm.
whatever we got to do for you to feel like you have somebody.
Right.
And after doing that for a while, uh, I decided that I needed more for my son in
Mhm.
his school district. And once again, me being me, I didn't ask anybody any permission to do it.
Mhm.
And I didn't think it was going to bulldoze me into politics.
Mhm.
I spent one night making a website saying that I was going to run for the Johnston School Board. And the next day, I made a Facebook post about it, and the
Mhm.
next thing I know, I have the Johnston Democrats messaging me, I have Polk County Democrats messaging me, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness." And, it didn't occur to me that I was gonna be a politician. I didn't know that I was supposed to ask anybody or talk to anyone,
Mhm.
who's running and, strategize. I'm like, I'm just doing the thing. So that is how that's how you see the Tiara that you see now. Is it was a
Mhm.
lot of just building my confidence,
Mhm.
building my faith,
Mm.
learning to lean into my family a lot in
Mhm.
my village, and just being honest about what I was going through. So
Mhm.
a huge part of what I do is storytelling. I tell my
Mhm.
story. One, because when you tell your story, it's powerful because people don't know what they don't know. And I needed people to understand that, "I'm so sorry I canceled on you. Here's why. Yeah, I
Mhm.
couldn't get my son out of the door." Not to provide excuses, but you'd be surprised what people how people react when they know more about the situation. So, yeah, that's how
Mhm.
I got here. I just started saying yes and being obedient to what God was telling me to do.
Yeah, and that's really powerful. The advocacy that you started for your son and even for your daughter with having a sibling with autism, that advocacy for those 2 children, it has now essentially rippled out to advocating for other children and other families in in similar situations. But also what I love, and I heard you speak about this a couple of years ago at the Power Summit, is holding people accountable for the jobs and for the responsibilities and the offices that they've taken, So for you to know that there was a gap in the Johnson Public School District and say, "You know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and run so that way I can hold these people accountable." You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I think that is so important, and I also think too that as Black women and as we start to tell our stories, I've even come to a different position in my life where I'm a very guarded person. People do not know me. Like, I just
I get that.
nope, nope, not at all. Like, nope, nope. You have to I often tell I used to say this all the time. I don't have any applications open for new friends. I've got my friends, I've got the people, I've got my family, I've got the people that, are able to see my crash outs and that's it. But
Yeah.
what I've noticed with this podcast and with talking to different people and also being on the other side of the microphone, that when I start to open up, it only broadens the connections that I initially had envisioned for this podcast. I'm not asking anyone's permission to do anything. I'm just saying there is a need. I'm going to go ahead and do this. If people like it, fantastic. If people don't, you know what? That's fantastic too. But regardless, I'm still going to be out here. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. That in itself, one, I'm glad that I've never thought to ask permission. One, when you go in blindly, I think that you don't scare yourself out of the situation even more. But also it forces people to respect you a little bit.
Mm,
Another person that I look up to greatly is Deidre Dergier.
hmm.
Me and her, we had a conversation a while back shortly um after the election in 2024, and she wanted to get insight about how I felt about my race, and I wanted to get insight about how she felt about her race. The thing that we had in common was is that neither of us asked permission
Mm,
to run. And whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, that is like a cardinal no-no.
hmm. Yeah.
You gotta talk to somebody.
Hmm.
And we didn't talk to anybody,
Yeah.
and I think that that's how it has to be done for Black
Hmm. Yeah.
in this space, not just politically, but almost in anything. Because
Hmm.
one, when you go and ask permission, you've now just told your competitors what you're about to do.
Hmm. You showed your hand.
You have showed your hand.
Hmm.
And we're adults. I don't need anybody's permission to
Mm-mm.
do anything. So that has been one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in the last 5 years is that if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. I don't
Hmm.
need strategy meetings. I don't need to have conversations about why I should and why I should
Mhm.
outside of those people that I truly trust. If I've made the decision, I'm gonna do it. And
Mhm.
quite frankly, speaking politically, if we don't, as a Black community, stop asking for permission, we won't have anybody in
Mhm.
office that looks like us.
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
we know that the system isn't built for us. And so the audacity to think that people are going to think that, okay, well, the system's not for us, but we're still going to play into it.
mhm.
That that doesn't make any sense at all.
It doesn't. The rules are different for us.
Mhm.
They really are.
Mhm.
You know, I look at a lot of politicians. Barack Obama, I've studied a lot about him, and it wasn't until he gave a speech at the DNC convention that they were like, "Oh, he could be the guy." Like, he's the guy.
Mhm.
But he was well qualified before that speech,
And there's that,
right?
like
He was well qualified before that. Conversations had taken place before that,
Mhm.
but he almost had to prove himself
Mhm.
to, get past, the party, and these lessons are just applicable in a lot of things. It's applicable in the workspace,
Yeah.
it's applicable, in our judicial system, in everything.
Mhm.
We are asked as Black folks to perform,
Mm.
to show our worthiness for stuff.
Mhm.
Despite the fact that the man is a Harvard graduate, despite that he was a state senator and a senator,
Yep.
he had to perform. And I find often that we are asked to be performative in order to show our worth
Mhm.
in a system like you said, that's not
Mhm.
built for us.
Mhm.
And if you don't perform in the way in which is deemed suitable,
Mhm.
your access is cut off.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. And, speaking of systems in you running for office, and correct me if I'm wrong, this was like your first official election in the Iowa for the Iowa legislature. Yeah, she ran in District 43 um against someone that has held the seat for a while. And your race was very interesting because you ran in District 43 for the Iowa House of Representatives against a Black Republican candidate. And again, you garnered 48% of the vote. So the margin of winning for the other candidate was less than 2% in your first Iowa election.
Yeah.
Talk
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, hours given, okay? Like, that right there, I feel like is something that, is incredibly powerful because that tells me now, granted, District 43 isn't mine, but that tells me about your district that you connected and you resonated with people in that district to come out and to vote and support you. Tell me a little bit about now that we're 8 or 9 months removed from that election, what lessons did you learn? What were some of your takeaways? And then, of course, I'm gonna ask, are you gonna do it again?
Yeah. So one, I'll start off with, yeah, that was my first time being the Democratic nominee. The cycle before I had ran in a primary, and that is a lot different than being the actual nominee.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I was a first time candidate, and when you are the nominee, you are working directly with the party. They are your staff. While I might not have had an official primary, remember I just talked about kind of having to perform a little bit. I knew after the 22 cycle, after that election where Deidre was our gubernatorial candidate, I knew that day that I wanted to run against
Mm.
Andrews.
Okay.
And from that moment, I connected who she would later become my campaign manager. And we decided, like, at the beginning of 2023, this is what we're doing. I had a couple of meetings with community leaders in Johnston, and I let it be known, like, I am going to run. The strategy behind that was I wanted to start early enough and plant the seed early enough to prevent anyone from running against me or primary
Mm,
me. That in itself, I almost wish I had a primary because trying to convince people that I was the right person to be the nominee was exhausting.
yeah.
It was exhausting. And of course, they think I don't know about it. I know about the secret meetings that took place about,
Mhm,
okay, who else we got? Was there a complete buy-in for me? No.
mhm,
Did the party initially want me to be the nominee? I don't think they did. I
mhm,
don't think that they believed that I had the capabilities of raising the money that they wanted. They
mhm,
wanted me to raise at least $100,000.
mhm.
Little black girl from Detroit, I ain't never seen $100,000. So I can't say that I entered into that confident that I could do that.
You're like, "How much?
Right.
Um,
When they said the number, I
$1,000,000?"
was
Okay.
like, so when we got to about February of 2024, I had really played the game to a space where it was no doubt that I was going to be the nominee, and that was well before June, before the
Mhm,
primary, but about a month before the filing deadline. And that's when the party started working with me and saying, okay, they liked my first fundraising numbers and things like that.
mhm,
The things that we did well, we outraised Eddie. Uh, we outdoor knocked him. Where we fell short, the lessons that I take from it is that, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't start off as myself. And I think that that cost me.
mhm,
I think another aspect that cost me is that from a party standpoint, we talked a lot about what Eddie was doing wrong, and we forgot to introduce me.
mm,
The one and only, ad that we had was a negative ad ran against Eddie. I didn't like the idea. If I could turn back time,
mhm,
I would never have ran that ad.
mm,
Not because it wasn't true. It was an accurate ad. It was him.
mhm,
Not because it wasn't, accurate
mhm,
or anything. I felt it would have been more beneficial for voters to know who I was.
mhm,
The numbers were there for me to win. Our state senate candidate, he did win.
mhm,
So I think the shortfall was just no running for a year, I still wasn't properly introduced to the
mhm,
community.
mhm,
And so that was the greatest lesson that I learned is that one, Democrats are serious when they say that they want to earn, you got to earn their vote.
mhm.
They mean that.
Yeah.
There's only one of me, and we chose our strategy was to really try and get independents and left-leaning Republicans to, you know, vote my way. We did that. What we didn't do was we didn't talk to enough Democrats. I didn't talk to enough Democrats. And so, had those Democrats, so this is where it's interesting to run against a Black Republican,
Mhm.
is that also a Black Republican who is well rooted in the Black community,
Yeah.
whose family is well rooted in the Black
Mhm,
community. And we know who his wife is. Betty is amazing.
mhm,
Outside of politics, me and Eddie, we get along just fine.
mhm. Yeah,
We just don't agree
yeah,
politically.
right.
So the struggle with that is that there were Democrats that voted for Eddie, and he's a nice guy. He's
Yeah.
charismatic. Can't take that away from him whatsoever.
Mhm.
You asked if I would do it again. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I would do it again.
Mhm,
Am I going to do it right now? That, I have not publicly answered that. And I
mhm,
I don't think I am. I like to
mhm.
keep people guessing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, because I don't wanna close that door.
Mhm.
Has anybody been beating down my door to ask me to run again? Nope. Other than those that really love me and that are
Yeah.
saying, "You should
Mhm.
move here or move there," and,
Yeah.
all that jazz, but it was rewarding in a lot of ways. One, because I'm really proud of the fact that we were what's called a targeted race. I was one of the more popular races in that cycle,
Mhm.
and despite the fact of not winning, I think the message did get across to a lot of Iowans. I'm proud of that, and
Mhm.
hopefully that builds a landscape for '26, and it
Mhm.
has. You can
Yeah.
see that, and just keep building off of that. Whomever runs in the district again, for '26, understanding that a different strategy has to kinda take place and advocating for yourself as a party. They have a lot of outsiders that don't live in Iowa, let alone
Mhm.
Johnston,
Yeah.
that don't necessarily know our landscape, so
Mhm.
you gotta have a candidate that's gonna advocate for what it is the people in your area really want.
Mhm. Yeah, and you bring up something just so important in the fact that you mentioned, we ran this ad, and while it was accurate, it was more talking about the other candidate, not talking about me. And I think oftentimes, especially as Black women, we sometimes we do get a little bit too hyper fixated on the problem, on the issue, you know, but yet, when we look on the other side of the issue, there is somebody holding the sign, And so I think that that is an incredible thing to recognize, and that's a level of self-awareness that I feel like a lot of people don't have because sometimes, what do we learn in the 1st grade? When you point a finger, they got 3 pointing back at you.
Yeah.
So sometimes, and a lot of the time, especially in your case, it is more important to come forward and be yourself, and
Yeah.
then it's gonna garner more trust and support when you start talking about those things that aren't so good, that problem, you know what I mean? So I think, and I asked Deidre when she was on the show and, I was talking to my dad, and my dad's been in Iowa for over 50 years now, and he is incredibly excited about the potential of Black women getting more and more involved in civic engagement and public service and all of these different spaces. And my dad, he even said it to me. He says, because once we gain trust, there's no going back at that point,
Yeah.
and that is so so important. I'm gonna go ahead and we want to wrap up the interview here. Tiara, I have to have you back because there's so many other things that I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about social media and, just the rundowns that you give on TikTok. I absolutely love, and I've even like taken notes from them. I want to talk about, your experience in the D9 and all of these great things, but I want to make sure that I'm respecting your time. And also I want to get to the fun part. So the whole conversation has been fun. But
It
I have
has.
recently been doing a lightning round with my guests. So these are quick questions that I'm going to ask one or the other. And so we're going to go ahead and get to that point. Are you good with that?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, let's go. Okay. So, first thing, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
All right. Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
Okay. Favorite TikTok trend right now?
Any dance trend, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah, I like to learn 'em. I'm still trying to stay cool, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially for my nephew. I'm trying
Yep.
to stay hip.
Yep. Yep. I had a conversation with my nephew the other day and I said, "Bro, you capping. I still got Riz." And he's like, "Enemy. Oh, don't say any of that." He's 17 and I'm like, "Okay,
Mhm.
I guess I'm not cool anymore, but I still think I'm cool cuz I know those words." So,
Exactly,
I get
exactly.
it. Yeah. Let's see. Go to hype song before a big event.
I always have to listen to "Making It Happen" by Mariah Carey.
Okay?
That and, "On Our Own" by Bobby Brown. Yes,
Too
I
hot to handle, too cold to hold.
Ghostbusters, yeah, a and I it's a part of my speaking playlist. Anytime that I have something where I really gotta motivate Tiara, I
Yeah,
listen to music, but those 2, I
those
have
2,
those 2, yeah.
period. I love it. Dream vacation destination.
Ooh, well, next month, me and my daughter, we're going to Italy.
Love that.
Yes, I'm so excited, I've never been to Europe,
Okay.
looking forward to that, but my dream is to go to Greece. Me
Okay.
and my husband, we really wanna go to Greece, and
Okay,
I
that'd
wanna
be
take one of
beautiful.
those flying dress pictures.
Yes, and go to
Yeah,
Santorini and be by
yeah.
that super blue water. Oh, I love that. What's always in your bag?
Always a notebook. There's always a notebook in my bag. There is always chapstick or lip
Mm,
balm of some sort.
mhm,
There's always Kleenex.
mhm.
There's always a pen. Those are the staples.
Those are staples? Okay. A book that changed your perspective?
Uh, it's been a couple. I'm gonna say, 7, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People by,
Okay,
Stephen Covey.
okay.
That book really changed my perspective in just how I operate as a human being.
Mhm.
Get up a little bit earlier. Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Stuff I like that book too because it's stuff that you think you it's like you know you should do it, but it gives you the why.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I
yeah,
love
I
that book.
love that. Okay. First word that comes to mind when you hear Iowa.
Corn,
Yep. Spot on, spot on. Zeta, Phi, Beta in one word.
finer.
I love it. All right, and what brings you joy right now?
Being with my family. After so many years of running for office, I am enjoying cooking, not every day. Just spending time with my family and not feeling guilty about not focusing on, the campaign or the thing that I'm
Mhm.
working on. So, yeah, just spending time with my family. I'm enjoying.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, Tiara, thank you so much for being on the show today. This is also the part where I want to make sure that listeners know where to follow you. So I'm going to roll out the red carpet, let people know where they can find you on social media, also where they can find your book. And I will be sure to have everything in the show notes. So go ahead.
Okay. So first, you can follow me on Tiara Mays for Iowa on Facebook. I just provide updates about what's happening legislatively throughout the state and specifically in Johnston, like updates, city updates, and stuff like that. TikTok, I do not know my TikTok name. It's probably Tiara for Iowa.
Okay.
I just started getting into the whole TikTok stuff.
Yep. Okay.
My book, we have 2 books. They are the Twin Chronicles series, #Twin Chronicles. The first one is The Adventures of Prince and Tiana, and the second one is called When a Prince Speak. Those are available on Amazon. If you can't remember the name, just Google my name and they should pop right up. If you order it, you'll get it in 2 days on Amazon Prime. It's
Love
great.
it. Okay.
Yeah, so that's where you can find me, LinkedIn, Tiara Mays-Sims.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Black Girl Iowa podcast. I hope today's episode with Tiara Mays-Sims left you feeling inspired, empowered, and reminded of the power of showing up authentically and unapologetically. To hear more stories from incredible Black women across Iowa, be sure to subscribe and listen to Black Girl Iowa on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and YouTube. You can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Black Girl Iowa, and check out my blog and merch all at www.blackgirliowa.com. Until next time, keep shining, keep speaking up, and keep building the Iowa you want to see.
Thank